In this lesson, we're going to continue with where we left off in the previous one. After splitting up all our game environment pieces, we're going to start bringing it into our Unity scene. So finally moving forward, the next lessons is not going to always start with just a blank, boring canvas. We're going to have an actual level after this. So let's get started. We're going to cover how to use sorting layers, and we're going to cover how to set the render order of all our asset pieces here. And you're going to find out why that's important after this as well. So let's just get right on into it. Let's go down to our assets in our project pane here. Remember we set up that game art folder here and our environment pieces. And here's our sprite object. So I'm going to expand this. And now we're going to start with the biggest piece of this puzzle, which is our environment background. So let's drag this first piece into our scene. Here we go. Look at that, our level's already almost built. Not quite yet. So we have our, this is kind of the first thing we've officially dragged into our scene here. So I just want to discuss a few little things. First thing you'll notice is it's imported, and we can now see it in our hierarchy pane here, which is great. What I want to do with this piece is I just want to set its positions to 0, 0, 0, just to keep it clean as possible. Reset, if you click on this little gear here, hit reset, it'll automatically zero out its X, Y, and Z positions. So I'm going to zoom in, look at this magical environment. Cool. Okay, and let's now drag in, I want to add that fog layer to the background. So I'm going to drag this environment fog up. You can see it's added in here, which is great. And I'm also going to zero out its position. Why not? There we go. And as you can see right now, this is not how I want it to look. You can see the fog is just layered over everything. And there's a few ways that we can deal with this. If you want, you can click on this 2D. And now we see I'm holding Option and left clicking to pan around. And oops, let's click on this. And now you can manually do this, position it backwards like this, just behind this, which would work. Look at this, if I go like so, we are all good. But what I want to do is I'm going to reset its position here, and I'm going to show you the 2D method first. But first I'm going to just scale this up a little bit. I don't really care too much if this is a little bit stretched. It's just fog. There's not really much Z. Why am I scaling that? Nothing to do there. So I'm going to keep this. Let's just go 1.3. Give us some extra space, right? Why not? 1.3. Cool. So we have our fog. And the next piece I'm going to do is our environment midground. Let's drag this piece up here too. And let's kind of just zero this out first as well. We'll keep it there for the moment. All right, so now what do we have? We have our pieces in, but it is not looking as I want it to. So how are we going to deal with this? Let's get into some organization where we can create our sorting layers now. To create some sorting layers, you want to click on this drop-down menu here, and we want to go Edit Layers. We're not using regular layers for this, we're going to be using sorting layers. Now that we're in the sorting layers menu, let's get into how to create some new sorting layers here. As you can see, everything is on layer 0 default. And right now, every object that I drag into my Unity scene is automatically getting added to layer 0, the default. So they're all getting rendered and stacked on the same layer at the same time. So we don't really want that. What we want to do is we want to be able to separate these items and give it some depth and give us some organization control in that. So I'm going to create about 4 layers. Hit the plus key, we're going to create 4 layers. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And what these are doing now is whatever's on layer 1, which is at the bottom of the stack, visually it's on the top, so don't get too confused there, I hope not. Just read the numbers, layer 1, 2, 3, 4. So layer 1, that's going to be on the very bottom. Layer 1 I'm going to set up, I'm going to create this for my BG, which can be my background objects. Layer 2, I'm going to create this for my midground. I'm just going to call it MG. And I'm going to create layer 3 with, I'm going to say, foreground. Foreground, and let's just do props. Have those on their own layer as well. This is awesome. We're going to be able to organize our level very nicely with this. We can always come back to this if we need to make any changes or reorder them by clicking these double lines and moving them just around like that. But I like the 1, 2, 3, 4 organization. So we're all good. Now we can get in and start kind of organizing our assets. So let's carry on. In the background, what do I want to be rendered in the very back? I like this environment, even though I titled it Environment Midground. This is actually going to be in the background. That's my bad for my labeling. We can always go into our sprite editor and change that, but I'm going to put this on my BG layer. So watch what happens after I set this. BG layer. All right, nothing, but that's okay because it's still on top of our default layer, which everything else is. So as we continue organizing everything, you're going to see changes happening. So right away, that's awesome. I'm going to go to my background main. I'm going to set my sorting layer not to default. It's going to be foreground. So now watch what happens. Look at that. We have progress already. Cool. So I'm going to go to my fog. And I want my fog to be on the midground layer as well, actually. Or sorry, this is background. So I'm going to put this on my background layer. Okay, perfect. So now what we have is our midground mountain object there is on our BG layer, and so is our fog. But how do we control which one of these objects on the same layer get stacked on top of themselves? Now simply I could go in and I could do this thing where I reposition them, but I want to teach you this way first, and that's kind of like a backup if you want to use that. So let's see what we can do without moving anything, just keeping them all at 0. So I'm going to click on my fog, and as you can see, how we set our sorting layer was all just in this drop-down menu. But what's this underneath it? Order in layer. Now we can control what on that sorting layer gets rendered first and last. For example, right now everything's defaulted to 0. So those are going to be the first things that get rendered at the same time on that layer. But say I want something to pop up in front of all the other objects that are on level 0 on that layer. So I'm going to select my fog. I'm going to hit 1. So now my fog, you can kind of see it in this corner here how it changed. But let me do something else that's going to help you. So if I just click and move this so we can see the fog overlaying that. If this was on layer 0, see, it's getting rendered in the same space. So it's not going above in front of those mountains. I want to stack it above everything that's in the order 0. I want to be 1 above that. So I'm going to say 1. There. Now we can see that is getting rendered and stacked on top of those mountain objects that are on that layer. So it's kind of just another layer management within a layer. So it's really, really helpful, especially when we get into props and stuff like that. So now that you understand how you can drag in your objects and how you can start arranging your objects within your scene by creating sorting layers and organizing them by the order in the layer that they're stored on, we now know how we can make this level look good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to cut here, and I'm going to continue to bring in all these objects, and I'm going to just speed it up so you guys can quickly see a flash what happens here. I'm going to keep building this level, and you guys do the exact same. You guys can pause the lesson now, build your level using the techniques I've shown you so far, and I'm going to carry on at the end of this lesson, just wrap it up quickly with a few little things. Maybe there's something I noticed when I was arranging, or there's one camera thing I want to show you too. So carry on, build your level, and we'll wrap up the lesson after that. I'll be back with you soon. Alright, and I'm back. So what I've done here is I've quickly just roughed in all these objects' positions, and now I just want to cover a few little things with you just in case you're still slightly confused on some of the concepts. For example, this is a perfect one to show you on here. These torches. This torch I have, the flame is on the props layer as well as this. But what I want to do is, because this object I want stacked on top of that torch, I'm going to set its order in layer to 1. That way, no matter what, it's going to be above that torch. And another great example of that is these gears here. They're all actually on the midground layer just because they're in between everything here. Everything else is on props, but I just figured these are kind of more of like an actual level structure. So I'm going to keep these on the midground layer. So this top gear, I want it to show up behind these two. So I'm going to select this gear and I'm going to set it to 1. And this other gear here, I'm going to set it to 2. Just keep them all on their own layers. That's going to show up on top of this one. Sure, I don't mind that. And this one's on 0, so it's going to be behind these two. And you know what? I think I want to change this. I'm going to put this one on 2 and this one on 1 just because it's the biggest gear. There we go. I kind of like that a bit better. There. So now these are all set up here. So I hope you guys had fun just arranging your level there. Oh, look at this. Those vines looking pretty unnatural here. So let me select these. I'm going to set this to midground as well. So now it shows up in front of all that stuff there. So that's cool. What layer is this fog on? This is on BG. You know what? I'm going to set this to midground. There. I want that fog. I'm going to set this to layer 2. So it's above everything else on this layer. Because I want this one, I want the fog to be over the vines. It just kind of adds more depth to it. That's just me. You guys can do whatever. So this is all I've done with these props here so far. As you can see from the game that you saw before, there's a few more things we actually need to import into this level. What we need to do is we need to import our, excuse me, our trip plates here that the character will walk over and trigger all this danger stuff happening. And we also have a moon, but we can get into that in another lesson. This is all just your environment. This is all we need for this module here. But right now, we have done awesome. We have all our level pieces in that we need. We've created an environment for WrapTuck to be stuck in and have to escape. So that's going to be pretty fun once we get into all that stuff. But what we're going to do now is the final step in this lesson is we're going to look at our camera settings. If you click on this main camera here, what we can do is you see this camera preview. This is what we're actually going to see. Let's go over to our game panel here. Look at this. See, we have a blue sky and kind of looks interesting. I've never really seen this environment with a blue sky in the background. Kind of neat. But we're going to change that, and we're going to change a few settings with our camera as well, because this isn't how I want my game to look. I want to be able to see the full level at this point. So first things first, let's start with our background. Let's click this, double click that, and let's change our color. Just curious. That's kind of neat, but I would just want like a pitch black. Whoa, look at this. You guys can do whatever you want. This is your level. You know what, for this tutorial series, I'm going to keep it kind of reddish actually. I've never seen it like that. It's just fresh for me, so I'm going to keep it like that. Now you guys do whatever you want with that. So that's me. And projection. We want to stay orthographic as this is a 2D game. If this was a 3D with 3D objects, we do perspective. As you can see, it changes our sorting layers quite drastically. So that's when you'd want to be using more positional changes here. So let's keep orthographic. So moving on here, our clipping planes. Now this is pretty important actually. So what clipping planes is it tells the camera how close to the object you can get and still render that object. So if we were to move our camera really close to this axe, it would just disappear at a certain point. And this is the limit of where we set it to disappear. 0.3 is totally fine here because nothing's going to be super close to our camera. And far, we can definitely decrease this from 1000 because as we were learning in this lesson not how to change the position in the z-axis to moving away from you or closer to you, everything's on the same plane. Right now we're all at that 0 level. So this far is just telling it how far the camera can look in depth and still render an object. Everything's on the same plane here. So we can move this way down. Let's see, 10. Still works. Cool. The lower number we have, the less our computer has to work, right? So let's keep it at a low level. As you can see, oh, look at this. I'm kind of close here. For safety, I'm gonna set it to 20. Still better than 1000, right? So we're all good. All right, so that's all we need to do there. The last thing we need to do is set our size. I'm going to set my size, which is gonna say how wide of a shot we can get here. So I wanna move it as much as I can. The position of my camera, I'm going to play with these values here. I want it to start. Our camera is going to be able to move and follow our character around. So that's all well and good. Let's move, so I'm going to move this maybe a little bit more, like so. Okay, let's see about this much of our level to start out with. That's cool. And now let's move. I'm just playing around here. Let's move like that. That's cool. And you can see the top is getting cut off, but we have a balancing act right here. I want to see as much over as I can in this. So maybe I can even move my camera over a bit. I just want to see a little bit of that red door. All right, that's pretty cool. And let's move our camera as low as we can. That's cool. Okay, and now to fix this stuff, I'm going to select the fog in the background. I'm just going to position this up. There we go. It kind of fills up our sky so it's not just all of a sudden cut off. Our level's not looking too weird. And with my camera selected, I'm just going to move it down a little bit more. I just didn't like the floor that low. And my size, I'm going to move it in a little bit. Just like that. Okay, and now I'm just gonna do the last one. I'm sorry, this is just, you're setting up here, so you want to be as good as you can on this. So setting up my camera, perfect. Now you guys can do whatever you want to yours. Now that we have our camera set up, I can see there's a few things that need to be changed. I'm gonna set my curtains. Where are those things? Curtains. I need to move these up as well to accommodate for our camera positions. All good, and then I'm gonna set my other curtain up. That was up 5. My other one, I can see in the corner there still, so I'm just gonna put it up there. It can be a little bit higher. There's one more minor detail that I've noticed here, is this axe you can see is cut off. So how are we gonna fix this? Let's go up and just utilize the assets we have. Let's click on our environment midground. I'm just gonna right click and you can duplicate this. Now we have environment midground. I'm gonna call this, you can change the name over in the inspector window here. I'm gonna say foreground mountain. Sure, you can call it whatever you want really. Now we have this, I'm gonna go over and, oh yeah, we have to be in our scene view here. And I'm gonna go like so, and I'm just gonna rotate this in the Z by 90, or 180, sorry. 180. Now it's upside down, and I'm gonna pop this on the foreground layer as well. And I believe this axe is also on the foreground layer, and that's at 0. I don't want these to be flickering in and out of each other. That would be pretty weird. So I'm gonna set this to 1, so it's above that axe for sure. And let's move that up. And I kind of like this piece only. So I wonder what I can do here. Let's get a little creative maybe and see if I do something like this. All I want to do is cover that up. And it looks like I can get away with that actually. That's neat. Okay, I need to move it down a little bit. Whoa, look at that. Okay. Cool. So let's see how that looks in our scene view here. We have a little bit overhang there, but that's okay. Add some character here. Cool. So now we have our foreground element reused to fix that. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm just gonna save where I'm at here. You should have enough knowledge now. You can go and tweak away as much as you want with this. I'm gonna cut the lesson here, and in the next lesson, we're gonna start bringing in our character and getting him ready for the next portion of this lesson where we're gonna start working on some character movement. I'll see you there.